Damascus, a city steeped in history, welcomed Bashar al-Assad on September 11, 1965. Born into a family already wielding significant power, Bashar's life would forever be intertwined with the fate of Syria. His father, Hafez al-Assad, ruled the nation with an iron fist, establishing a regime marked by both stability and repression. Bashar's early years were spent under the shadow of his father's legacy, a legacy that would ultimately shape his own destiny. From a young age, Bashar was known for his quiet demeanor, a stark contrast to the boldness often associated with political life. His interests lay not in the halls of power but in the world of science and medicine. This early inclination suggested a different path for the young Assad, one far removed from the political stage. It seemed that Bashar's future held the promise of healing, not ruling. Bashar's educational journey led him to the halls of the Arab-French Al-Hurriya school in Damascus, where he excelled in his studies. His thirst for knowledge extended beyond the borders of his homeland, taking him to the prestigious University of Damascus. There, he pursued his passion for medicine, ultimately specializing in ophthalmology, a field requiring precision and a steady hand. By 1988, Bashar had earned his medical degree, embarking on a career seemingly destined to improve the lives of others. However, the call to further his medical expertise led him to London in 1992, where he delved deeper into the intricacies of ophthalmology. It was during these years abroad that Bashar honed his skills and broadened his perspective, absorbing the cultural nuances of a society vastly different from his own. Little did he know that fate had other plans for him, plans that would forever alter the course of his life and the destiny of Syria. The Assad family's story is deeply intertwined with the complex tapestry of Syrian society. Belonging to the Alawite sect, a minority Shia Islamic group, the Assads faced an uphill battle in their quest for power. Hafez al-Assad, a shrewd and ambitious military officer, rose through the ranks of the Syrian army and the Ba'ath Party, seizing control of the country in a bloodless coup in 1971. His rule, characterized by both stability and brutality, ensured the Alawite minority's grip on power. Hafez strategically placed loyalists, many from his own sect, in key positions within the military and intelligence services, consolidating his family's control over the levers of power. The name al-Assad, meaning the lion, had become synonymous with authority and dominance in Syria. It was a legacy that Bashar, the unassuming doctor, could never have imagined inheriting. Fate, however, had a cruel twist in store for the Assad family. Bashar al-Assad, Bashar's charismatic older brother and the heir apparent to his father's throne, was tragically killed in a car accident in 1994. This devastating loss sent shockwaves through the corridors of power in Damascus and irrevocably altered Bashar's destiny. Summoned back from London, Bashar found himself thrust into a world he had never sought, a world of political intrigue and high stakes. He underwent rigorous military training, shedding his medical persona and embracing the mantle of leadership. Upon Hafez al-Assad's death in 2000, the Syrian constitution was swiftly amended, paving the way for the 34-year-old Bashar to assume the presidency. Section 5. A promise of reform. Bashar al-Assad's ascension to the presidency was met with a cautious sense of optimism, both within Syria and on the international stage. His early speeches hinted at a departure from his father's iron-fisted rule, promising political and economic reforms. The world watched with bated breath, hoping that this young leader would usher in a new era of openness and democracy in Syria. Bashar's background as a doctor, someone trained to heal rather than to rule, fueled these hopes. His wife, Asma, a stylish and articulate former investment banker, further bolstered the image of a modern, reform-minded couple at the helm of a nation yearning for change. Section 6. Descent into chaos. However, the promise of reform proved to be short-lived. Bashar's grip on power tightened, and the hoped-for democratic transformation failed to materialize. The authoritarian tendencies inherited from his father re-emerged, silencing dissent and crushing any challenge to the Assad family's rule. Then, in 2011, the winds of change sweeping across the Arab world reached Syria, igniting a popular uprising against Bashar's regime. What began as peaceful protests demanding greater freedoms and political participation was met with brutal force. The government's crackdown on its own people transformed the uprising into a full-blown civil war, plunging Syria into an abyss of violence and destruction. Section 7. A regime accused. As the Syrian conflict escalated into a brutal civil war, the international community watched in horror as the Assad regime unleashed its full might against its own people. Accusations of horrific human rights abuses and war crimes, including the use of chemical weapons, mounted against Bashar al-Assad and his inner circle. The world recoiled in horror at images of bombed-out hospitals, mass graves, and the indiscriminate slaughter of innocent civilians. The United Nations launched investigations, human rights groups documented atrocities, and international pressure mounted on the Assad regime to cease its brutal campaign of violence. Despite overwhelming evidence and condemnation from the international community, Bashar al-Assad remained defiant, clinging to power amidst the ruins of his nation. Section 8. The First Family. Throughout the tumultuous years of conflict, Bashar al-Assad and his wife Asma maintained a carefully crafted public image. State-controlled media portrayed them as a devoted couple, united in their determination to lead Syria through the crisis. Asma, once hailed as a beacon of modernity and reform, became a controversial figure, her elegant image juxtaposed against the backdrop of a nation torn apart by war. The Assad family's personal life became intertwined with the political narrative, their every move scrutinized and analyzed. Despite facing international sanctions and accusations of corruption, the Assads remained defiant, their grip on power seemingly unshaken by the chaos engulfing their nation. Section 9. A Legacy in Ruins. The year 2024 marked a dramatic turning point in the Syrian tragedy. Weakened by years of relentless conflict and facing mounting internal and external pressures, the Assad regime finally crumbled. Rebel offensives gained momentum, loyalist forces disintegrated, and the once unthinkable became a reality. Bashar al-Assad was overthrown. Forced into exile in Russia, he left behind a nation shattered by war, its economy in ruins, its social fabric torn apart. Bashar al-Assad's legacy is a complex and contested one. Once seen as a beacon of hope for a modern and reformed Syria, he will forever be remembered for the brutal war that ravaged his nation. The Syrian people, having endured unimaginable suffering, now face the daunting task of rebuilding their lives and their country from the ashes of a conflict that defined a generation. The fall of the Assad regime marks the end of an era, but the path towards a peaceful and prosperous future for Syria remains uncertain.